Dynasty rookie drafts, sometimes you don't want to take the rookie. So today we're going to break down 101 through 112, what veterans we would trade for each rookie pick. We'll detail exactly which rookie we have ranked there, which of course you guys probably know at this point in time. But we will talk about, let's say you're picking 105. You don't want Trevion Henderson or Cam Ward, who we have ranked there. Who should you trade for on the open market? If, for example, you are a win now competitive team who lucked into that 105 because you had somebody else's pick and you want to trade that 105 away for a competitive asset. So we're going to go through every single pick. And this comes on the heels of us updating our dynasty trade value charts, which you can get over on flockfantasy.com. As you guys can see on the screen, basically, if you have Michael Penix, you can see exactly what rookie pick in 2025 he's worth, and then what he's worth in terms of future rookie picks. And you can see that for every single player. That is what we are doing this exercise based on. So, Danny, let's get right into it. Pick 101, of course, is Ashton Genty for both of us in Superflex formats, in one quarterback formats, whatever. But if you were going to trade the 101, you presumably don't need a running back if you're trading that away, or maybe you just don't believe in Genty for whatever reason. So who are some players that you would be going after if you were trying to trade the 101 away?
Yeah, so my favorite targets with the 101 pick that I have listed here, the two that I ended up deciding on would be Caleb Williams and Puka Nacua. I could have had Caleb Williams and Drake May, but want to give you at least one quarterback and one wide receiver in this video. So if you want to take Drake May, that's perfectly fine as well. I'll start with Caleb Williams. I did actually move him one spot ahead of Drake May. Really like the surrounding cast there with Chicago. Obviously, you had Luther Burden plus Colson Loveland in the draft. I really loved Ben Johnson's vision for how this offense is going to look. And I do think Caleb Williams, a guy that we both thought was a franchise quarterback level prospect, guy that had the Mahomes, Kyler level comps, is in the perfect opportunity to potentially be a top 3, top 5 overall startup pick next year. So if I do have the 101, I need a quarterback, especially one with young upside. Caleb Williams is the guy I'd be going after. A wide receiver, though, like I mentioned with Puka Nacua, the reason why you'd be going for Puka Nacua if you have Ashton Genty at this 101, maybe you're stacked at running back. Maybe you're not quite ready to compete now, so you don't want to put that value asset into a running back. I think Puka Nacua, given the fact that he's 23, tethered to an elite offensive situation, especially with Sean McVay, obviously the usage that he gets both in the slot, on the move. Sean McVay knows how to use Puka Nacua, and I think he has high-end wide receiver production, at least for the next 5 years.
Yeah, those two guys make a lot of sense. I have Malik Neighbors and Bijan Robinson. Now, obviously, if you were not picking Genty, maybe Bijan's not the direction you go in. But as of right now, I still do have Bijan over Genty. And especially if you lucked into this pick because you have just like an excellent team and you had somebody else's first rounder and you're looking to add an absolute hammer running back to your team like Bijan Robinson, I will have him ranked RB1 in redraft. And also when you think about what he represents from a 23-year-old back who still has 3 to 5 more absolutely elite years under his belt with the new quarterback, new situation, I think Bijan, for me, if you wanted to move off of the risk of Genty and take, instead of taking the mystery box, because Genty could definitely be more valuable than Bijan, you just want to take the sure asset. I think that's totally fine, especially if you're a conservative dynasty player. And then Malik Neighbors, to me, represents just a generational wealth opportunity. I mean, Malik Neighbors couldn't even drink legally at training camp last year and had elite target share numbers as a rookie. So with him having Jackson Dart coming in, with him having, just an excellent, talent profile.
Even Russell Wilson over what he had last year.
Yeah, literally, there was games where Tommy DeVito and Boyle were throwing him the football. The guy's not even going to be 22 years old as of this recording right now. So for me, Malik Neighbors, I have him even slightly over some of the other, trio of elite dynasty receivers. You could convince me that Malik Neighbors is the dynasty wide receiver 1 in fantasy right now. Like, you literally could convince me of that. So the fact that if you're picking 101 and let's say for whatever reason you don't need to add a running back to your team, you already have Bijan and Gibbs and a bunch of other guys, you could definitely you could convince me to trade this straight away for Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, and maybe it costs you a little bit on the 101 to get Neighbors. We're perfectly reasonable as long as it's a fair market offer. We go to the 102 now, and my two guys here are Nico Collins and Brian Thomas Jr. Your two guys, Amon St. Brown and Drake London. Sticking to the wide receiver theme, obviously had to rep my boy Nico Collins with the jersey right now. And in fact, we actually just made a trade for 3 players on this video with Nico Collins and 2 soon to be that you guys will see later on with DK Metcalf and Breece Hall.
Yeah, I think the takeaway here is that if you're trading the 102, the 102 for us is Travis Hunter. For some people, it's Amari and Hampton. Whether you're conservatively against taking Travis Hunter at 102 because of all the concerns that you might have for him, or you don't need a running back and you were thinking of taking Amari and Hampton, I don't think there's another running back worth the 102. If you can't get to Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan Robinson, I would not trade the 102 straight up for Devon Achane. At quarterback, you could definitely convince me, oh, you could trade the 102 for like a Drake May or something like that. But in most leagues, based on our expert rankings on the site, it's not possible according to our rankings. And then other than Bowers, I personally wouldn't trade the 102 away for Trey McBride unless it was like a super, super heavy tight end premium. So for us, if you're going to trade this pick away, you probably want to get a wide receiver in that territory of all the guys we have listed. With St. Brown, you're getting the stud PPR guy. Detroit Lions offense, you want to be tethered to that situation. With Drake London, you're getting a guy who's not even 24 years old yet, just had a top 3 target share in the NFL and 16.5 PPR points per game. Now with, I would say, probably a long-term quarterback upgrade with what Penix showed in his early signs in his rookie season. And with Drake London, you also don't have a whole lot of target competition around him. They didn't really add anybody other than Pitts and Mooney, who are already there.
Yeah, these valuations specifically are with us having Hunter at 102. As you'll see, 103, we do have Omarion Hampton there. You will see a couple more different trade suggestions, but specifically for the 102, because we do have Hunter at a higher valuation than Omarion Hampton. The reason why you'd be trading Travis Hunter, like Corey alluded to, is the fact that maybe you're a little bit more risk averse. Maybe you just want to say, hey, listen, he's got elite upside at wide receiver, but I can cash in for an already elite proven wide receiver. So even though I have Hunter extremely high, wide receiver 9 in my rankings, I do have all these guys slightly ahead of him.
Yeah, for sure. So moving into the 103, which you just kind of alluded to, we have Omarion Hampton ranked at 103. Some people might have Travis Hunter ranked at 103. Regardless, the 2 guys that I have listed here as good trade targets, if you're picking 103 and you don't want to pick Omarion Hampton for whatever reason, or you don't want to pick Hunter for whatever reason, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Bo Nix are the 2 guys I have listed here. I think with Harrison, it makes a lot of sense. Again, if you're one of those more risk-averse drafters, you want to just pivot into a Marvin Harrison. I think Danny would make the case that you should just re-roll into Travis Hunter. Or if you're picking Omarion Hampton here and you need a wide receiver instead, I am still very much on the side of Marvin Harrison's going to be just fine. I know a lot of people are concerned by some of his underlying metrics in his rookie season, yards per out run wise, PFF receiving grade wise. He wasn't the best receiver prospect we've ever seen immediately. We all expected Marvin Harrison to have a much better rookie season than he did in reality, but he had great red zone usage. He had some big plays here and there. Just needs to be more consistent down to down. And I feel like he will, to be honest. He's got the NFL bloodlines, the NFL lineage. I feel like he's going to put the work in this offseason to do that. And then with Bo Nix, quickly, I'll just talk about him. He had a great rookie season. He runs the football. He was a top 12 quarterback his rookie year. So for me, I would have liked to see a little bit more added around him as far as weapons, but Evan Ingram's a piece. They added a 3rd-round receiver. There's a couple of guys they added to the backfield as well with RJ Harvey. Bo Nix is a quarterback that if you were picking 103, you don't want to pick Cam Ward that high. That's kind of why I have Bo Nix listed here. Because some people might think, I'm at 103. I don't need a running back or a wide receiver. I want to pick a quarterback here. I'll just take Cam Ward. Well, if you can go and trade for Bo Nix, you should do that instead.
Yeah, and you'll see that's a common sentiment, specifically within the 103 to 106 range. We do have quite a few quarterbacks listed here because that's usually the honeypot for where a guy like Cam Ward will go in a lot of your drafts. Basically, the point that we are trying to make to you guys is if you are considering drafting Cam Ward in this range, and we'll give a couple of the options once we get to 104, 105, 106, etc., instead of just taking Cam Ward and saying, I need a quarterback, this is my guy, explore the market, see what the equatable pick cost value could get you on the open market when it comes to the veteran quarterback position. You mentioned Marvin Harrison Jr. and Bo Nix. My 2 guys at the 103 valuation are Trey McBride and Devon Achane. Funny because I would agree with you. 102, I would not ship off for Devon Achane or Trey McBride because I do personally value Travis Hunter ahead of them. But once you're at the 103, let's just say for us, that would be Omarion Hampton. Omarion Hampton and Devon Achane are both in the same tier for me at running back. Maybe you're a more put-together team. You're ready to compete year one. Devon Achane will be higher in my redraft rankings. I don't think that's a bad transition to make whatsoever between Omarion and Devon Achane. And then with Trey McBride, after Brock Bowers, I think he's the clear-cut tight end 2 in Dynasty. And I'd be perfectly content sending the 103 if I'm in a position where my running backs are set, wide receivers are set, I'm ready to compete. I just need that crown jewel tight end. Trey McBride's a guy that can get you maybe 90 catches, 1,000 to 1,100 yards, maybe even ups that touchdown count that we saw from this past year.
Well, I'd hope so. It was really terrible compared to the volume that he ended up having there. So we got 2 Arizona Cardinals in that 103 range there, but 104, and I believe we have a 3rd Arizona Cardinal coming up here soon. 104, for us, that would be Tedero McMillan, wide receiver of the Carolina Panthers. That's the rookie that we would take at 104, but I've seen Hampton go this low. I've seen Hunter go this low. So it is kind of that 102 to 104 range is generally, I would say, on the market a fluid tier, but for us, it's very clearly Hunter 102, Hampton 103, and McMillan 104. For me, if you're picking 104 and you don't want to take Tedero and McMillan because maybe you don't like the Panthers or maybe you don't want a rookie receiver or whatever the case is, getting Saquon Barkley if you're a competitive team who lucked into the 104, to me, this is about the price range I can stomach it. I would not give up the 102 or 103 for Saquon Barkley, but 104 to me, it makes sense. I don't have to say anything. He had 2,000 yards last year. It's pretty self-explanatory why I would want Saquon Barkley on my team if I'm competitive. CJ Stroud would be the quarterback that I would go with because I have seen more than once Cam Ward go at 104 above Tet McMillan. So if you're picking 104 and you're thinking, I'm going to take Cam Ward here because I need a quarterback, I don't need a wide receiver, why not go and trade for a veteran quarterback? Because you're going to talk about one too. Like Cam Ward, it's very hard for me to envision myself often pressing the draft button on him, period, just because of all the quarterbacks available for that price tag. So for me, if you have the 104 and you're thinking you might want to take Cam Ward because you need a second quarterback or something like that in a super flex, go see what CJ Stroud costs on the open market because the market dictates that he's actually about this cost.
Yeah, and it's funny because you picked a flex player plus a quarterback. I picked a flex player plus a quarterback. You mentioned CJ Stroud. I'll just stay in the division. Trevor Lawrence. I already made the case for Brian Thomas Jr. We've already talked about at 102, literally the newest addition to the Jacksonville Jaguars there with Travis Hunter. I think this has the opportunity to be one of the cleanest offensive projections in the NFL. Liam Cohn coming over, obviously, from your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like I said, we both believe in the talent level of Trevor Lawrence. Offensive line should be patchworked as well. Now you're adding an elite superstar level wide receiver in addition to what you already have with Brian Thomas Jr. People might be questioning, well, outside of those two, how is the offense going to function? To be quite frank, I think this offense is going to function through those two, and Trevor Lawrence is going to be the biggest benefactor. A quarterback that likes to push the ball down the field, quarterback that does need those big 50-50 body balls like we see with Brian Thomas Jr. Now also has that sustained route runner, sustained separator in the open field. Think of kind of how the neighbors Brian Thomas Jr. relationship was at LSU. That's kind of how I picture Hunter and BTJ working with Jacksonville.
Yeah, absolutely. So we went through 101, 102,
McConkey
102
as well.
Yes, sorry, go with Live McConkey as well.
Pretty simple. If you are at this pick and you're eyeing Tet McMillan, Ladd McConkey, obviously coming off his rookie year, maybe a little bit easier for projection. I technically do have Tet slightly higher, but if you're in a competitive window, I think Ladd McConkey is a better year one projection.
Yeah, and some people are just conservative dynasty players. They'd rather have the devil they know versus the devil they don't. Sure. And Ladd McConkey showed in year one, especially now that all they added was Trey Harris and Oronde Gadsden to the wide receiver and tight end core. You could feel pretty comfortable that McConkey's going to have a great role this season. So 105, 106, we have grouped together because Trevion Henderson and Cam Ward in our rookie rankings are basically in the same tier. In my startup rankings, they're like 3 spots apart. So if you're picking 105, you're picking 106, essentially you're going to be trading for the same veteran. So we have 3 each here because of that. Bucky Irving, Kyler Murray, and Baker Mayfield are mine. Again, if you're picking 105 thinking you're going to take a quarterback, go trade for Kyler Murray. Yeah. Go trade for Baker Mayfield, especially in a competitive window. Why would you wait? In my opinion, what's going to take a little bit of time for a guy like Cam Ward, who was a developmental quarterback, a little bit of a project, probably isn't going to give you excellent production year one, maybe not even year two. Like look at Bryce Young and some of these other quarterbacks, Tua Tagovailoa when he was coming out. Sometimes it takes them till year 2, year 3 to start playing at a high level. Kyler Murray is ready to go. He can be a competitive quarterback for you. He has Marvin and McBride to throw to, and he runs the football. Baker Mayfield has an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver for him. So he's going to be just fine. He was a top 6 quarterback in fantasy last year. And Bucky Irving, his running back, if you're picking 105, 106, you're a conservative dynasty player, or you're just in a competitive window, why take the risk on Trevion Henderson when you could just go get Bucky Irving for this exact price tag? Trevion Henderson absolutely will be valued higher than Bucky Irving if he has an excellent rookie season and all that kind of stuff. But what happens if Ramondre Stevenson's a thorn in his side all season? And what happens if Trevion Henderson only has 190 touches over the entire year? Bucky Irving is going to be a 250 touch, extremely efficient running back tethered to one of the better offenses in the league. And we already know he's an excellent player. There's no issue in terms of that. Like Trevion Henderson hopes he can be as good as Bucky Irving was his rookie season.
Yeah, and by the way, don't worry. I will talk about one Cowboy to offset the Bucks talk in a little bit. Don't worry. My guys at 105, 106, Jordan Love, AJ Brown, T. Higgins. And yes, I am talking about a Cowboy, but I do have to give an Eagle some love here. AJ Brown, if you are in a contending window, yes, he is at this point a competitive asset. I know we kind of have to shift gears in our minds because obviously we looked at AJ Brown. He came in 2019. We've been viewing him as this young asset for a while, but it's a guy that is on the wrong side of 26 years old. Isn't giving you the elite end production, but if you can get him for the 105, 106, you're immediately getting a mid to low end wide receiver 1 projection, tethered to a very good offense. And we know the offensive situation is going to be concentrated to Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith. If you need AJ Brown, again, I wouldn't pay more than this. I think 105, 106 is about the reasonable line for me. But if you're on the clock and Cam Ward's there and somebody really needs a quarterback and maybe they're potentially transitioning their team, I think A.J. Brown would make sense. Likewise with T. Higgins, very similar issue. The only thing is T. Higgins isn't the number one on his team, but T. Higgins is very much tethered to an elite quarterback situation, an elite offensive volume situation in Cincinnati. And then speaking of a quarterback, I have Jordan Love in this range as well. Look back to what he did 2 years ago, over 30 passing touchdowns, upstart Green Bay offense. They add a rookie wide receiver this year. People might be a little bit worried that Jordan Love didn't look the greatest last year coming off of that injury, but I do think he's in store for a bounce back year. And I also believe in Matthew Golden, the prospect.
Yeah, it depends on what your window looks like because A.J. Brown will actually be 28 in June, at the end of June. So he's a little bit older. You'd probably want to be a top 3 team immediately to be trading for a guy like that. And then T. Higgins a little bit younger, just barely 26 at this point in time. So he would be more of like, maybe in a 1-year punt, you could stomach holding him a little bit longer than a guy like A.J. Brown. And then, like you said, if you're going to take, this is why I just don't ever select it. Like I've picked Cam Ward one time. And even when I picked him, I was working the phones the whole time trying to see if I could get a.
You got auto picked him because you're at the game.
No, I didn't auto pick him. I had him set in my queue. I was trying to trade for a different quarterback the whole time. I couldn't get a quarterback trade done. I tried trading for Trevor Lawrence. I tried trading for Jordan Love. I tried trading for Baker Mayfield. Like nobody wanted to give me a quarterback. So I just set my queue and I went to a Leaf game and Cam Ward got auto picked at that point. But I was going to pick him anyways.
One of the cons, by the way, when everybody in the league knows what you're trying to do with your picks.
Exactly. But regardless, if you guys are thinking of picking Cam Ward at 105, 106, exhaust the veteran market because I would much rather have Jordan Love. I would much rather have Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Trevor Lawrence, even like Justin Herbert, who we didn't talk about. Obviously, if you get anywhere near Bo Nix or CJ Stroud with that pick, definitely go ahead and do it. But moving into the 107 and 108 tier, which for us is Quinshon Judkins, Emeka Egbuka. Those are the 2 players we have ranked there. Very close in both of our startup rankings to each other. So similarly, you're going to get similar players on the open market. The 3 trade targets that I like, if you don't want to pick either Judkins or Egbuka, because let's face it, both of those guys maybe won't have the greatest rookie seasons, especially Egbuka at wide receiver. Devontae Smith, Zay Flowers, and Sam Laporta are the guys I have listed here. Devontae Smith, essentially same argument as A.J. Brown, only he's the number 2, not the number 1. And then Zay Flowers, of course, very young still. I think Zay Flowers is criminally underrated all the time. I talk about him in literally every dynasty trade targets by position that I do because Zay Flowers is the number 1 receiver for a quarterback who should have just won his 3rd MVP. So I feel really good for Zay Flowers going into the next couple of years, easily projecting him as a top 24 guy. Very safe projection, very safe floor. But I do think an underrated ceiling for a player that's still getting better every year. And then with Sam Laporta, might get hurt by the fact that Ben Johnson's no longer there. So that would be the one thing I'd be a little bit concerned with investing into Sam Laporta. But 107, 108 is a little bit higher than Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland go in rookie drafts. And I would rather have Sam Laporta, who's the devil I know, versus taking the risk on Colston Loveland or taking the risk on Tyler Warren. As good of a prospect as those guys are, and as likely if they hit, they would be higher than Sam Laporta in terms of dynasty value. I already know Sam Laporta is a really good tight end. So that would be the reason why I would maybe invest in a guy like him. So Smith, Flowers, and Laporta are the 3 guys that I would potentially trade for if I didn't want to spend my 107 or my 108 on Judkins and Egbuka, who we have ranked there.
Yeah, and then my guys that I have ranked in this range would be Dak Prescott. Again, I alluded to the fact that it would be a Cowboy. You guys hit the jersey in the back. You knew it'd be Dak Prescott, Breece Hall, and Garrett Wilson. So a Cowboy and 2 Jets, which go figure. You got the Jets jersey behind you. I got the Cowboys jersey behind. I'll quickly make the case for Dak. When he's on the field, he's one of the most productive quarterbacks in the league. Literally was second in MVP voting the last fully healthy year he played. Yes, there's some question marks in terms of the overall offensive situation, which is why he's probably even in this range rather than even being higher like he would be in past years. However, you have CeeDee Lamb on the field. You have an improved offensive line. I do like the direction the Schottenheimer offense is going in relation to what we saw last year with Mike McCarthy. And at this point, when you're getting a vet, even mid to low end quarterback, 1 producer, 107, 108, I would send in Judkins. I would send in Egbuka very comfortably for that.
Yeah, I think the one thing I would say against Dak is he might have the Justin Herbert effect happen this year, which is the offense is improved, the team is improved, they're winning more games, but maybe they go a little bit more run heavy, and he doesn't have to be a 600 pass attempt guy like we saw with Herbert before Jim Harbaugh got there. And that, of course, results in you having a 32-year-old quarterback who's like quarterback 16 in points per game as opposed to quarterback 9 like you thought you were getting.
Yeah, again, I don't see that being the case. I think at heart, the Cowboys do want to still throw the football. I mean, that's the identity of their team. Your two best players on offense are literally a quarterback and a receiver. So I think that talk is kind of being overblown a little bit right now. But if it's going to create a leverage on a market to be able to get them cheaper, I'm all for it. Mentioned the two Jets, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson. Breece Hall, obviously down year, Garrett Wilson down year. People are kind of just saying, fuck, get these guys off of my team. If you can get them for the 107, 108, they're both still young. They both have still shown elite upside at their positions. And especially in a PPR league, like if you're looking at Breece Hall versus Quinshon Judkins, I would take Breece Hall, especially in the immediate future. If you're looking at Garrett Wilson versus Emeka Egbuka, well, it is pretty close. Garrett Wilson is a guy I have a couple spots higher.
Yeah, like as much as this is kind of like copium for someone who obviously loves Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, like Garrett Wilson was 4th in the NFL in targets last year, and he's literally not even 24 yet, or he just turned 24, during the season. So we're talking about a guy who's extremely young still, who, again, people are going to overthink the Justin Fields of it all and that kind of thing. But, dog, Aaron Rodgers was not great last year. There was no adult in the room for the Jets coaching staff and the Jets organization. I think just the vibe shift, honestly, of having Aaron Glenn there and Justin Fields there versus the whole headache of Aaron Rodgers is going to result in Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson just being better. Again, maybe that's copium. I just think that Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson are still very talented players. They added more talent around the rest of the team, more talent on the offensive line, obviously, with their 7th pick in the draft. So I feel pretty good about both of those guys. With 107, 108, you're in a competitive window. You want to just go get Garrett Wilson instead of taking Emeka Egbuka. I think that's totally fine. 109, 110. This is the range where the rankings will start to blend together a little bit, but I would say generally consensus has the tight ends at 109 to 110, Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren, maybe Matthew Golden. But if you guys are thinking I should take Jackson Dart this high, just go trade for Bryce Young instead, because Bryce Young with a wide receiver, number 1 wide receiver upgrade in Ted McMillan, Leggett and Coker going into their second year. You still have Thielen on the roster. JT Sanders, I think, will have an improvement in his second year. I feel really good about Bryce Young as a good quarterback target. So if you guys are picking 109, 110, and you're thinking of reaching on Jackson Dart, go trade for Bryce Young instead. TJ Hawkinson, again, if you want the devil you know versus the devil that you don't know, you're a competitive team. You almost won the championship. You got out in the semifinals last year or something, and your biggest weakness was tight end, and you don't want to wait for Colston Loveland to develop, or you don't want to wait for Tyler Warren to develop. Trading for TJ Hawkinson, maybe even getting a plus on top of it, would be a move that I would be okay making. And then Chris Olave is the last guy I have listed here. Olave, concussions aside, which is the reason he's going this low and not higher, was once considered like a top 15 receiver in Dynasty, a top 10 receiver in Dynasty at points in time. And it's basically on the fact that he has the whole receiver core to himself, which is still true. He still has all of the volume to himself right now. So if you believe in Chris Olave, the player, then you should probably be trading for him actively. The only concern you could possibly have is that he's had a bunch of injuries and hasn't been able to stay on the field, and the Saints are kind of a dumpster fire. But that's been the case for a while now. And hypothetically, they invested in the quarterback position in the draft. So who knows? Maybe Tyler Shuck is good.
Yeah, I would need to get him cheaper than this, but I understand it. I just kind of have a couple of the rookie receivers that ranked above him, like Bird and Golden, etc. But if you want a proven guy, I think this is about the range. Honestly, the difference between 109, 110 this year versus the 202, 203 is pretty flat anyways. So I've noticed specifically in the leagues I'm in, the people that are in 109, 110, they're doing everything possible to try to move back a few picks is what I've been seeing.
Yeah. And really quick, sorry, Addison and Worthy and, some of those other guys would also factor in. I just picked Olave because right now I think he is one of the more undervalued options.
Yeah, and I think that's reasonable. I'll go on to my guys here. If you're on the clock, 109, 110, and you're eyeing between Matthew Golden versus Rashid Rice has proven when he's on the field, he can be an elite producer. Obviously, they both kind of had the immediate concerns. Golden because he's a rookie. Rashid Rice because he's got the looming suspension plus the knee issues. However, I do think with what Rashid Rice proved before the injury, he's a worthwhile investment if you can only spend a 109, 110, considering this guy was literally being talked about as a top 3 rookie pick valuation before he got hurt. JJ McCarthy, like you said, if you're going to just spend this pick on Jackson Dart, I think McCarthy was a much better prospect, got better draft capital, and landed in a much better situation long-term with the Minnesota Vikings. I love what Minnesota Vikings have there with the offensive line, the weapons on the outside, and of course, Kevin O'Connell, I believe the reigning coach of the year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And then Chase Brown here, a guy that actually have one spot higher than Breece Hall. Chase Brown down the stretch last year, weeks 9 to 17. So we're not just talking about a Fugazi split. We're talking about literally half the season. 85% of the snaps, but 24.4 opportunities per game and 18.2 PPR points per game. You're projecting the Cincinnati offense. Obviously, they were one of the best offenses in the entire league this past year. Chase Brown showed he can do it all. He can run between the tackles. He can catch out of the backfield. But the biggest reason why I'd be willing to spend a pick like in this range on Chase Brown is he is the biggest winner of draft weekend. I mean, Taj Brooks was the only running back added. Zach Moss is coming off a big-time injury this past season. Outside of Chase Brown in that depth chart, point to me the guy that's going to take work from him.
No, yeah, you can make the argument he was the biggest league winner in fantasy last year and maintained his starting job through the entire draft process and all that. So yeah, I think me and you are the two of the flock experts on the site. I think you and I are the only two with him in our top 10s at running back.
For sure. And this is why, like, I do technically have Chase Brown over Breece Hall, but understanding the market value, Breece Hall you can get for the 107, 108, just because I think that Chase Brown is worth the 106. If I can get him for the 109, 110 on the market, that's what I would be paying. Like, yeah, you can go a little bit over what the market is, but the point is, even if you have someone valued at the 106, don't just send the 106 for them. Try to get them cheaper, like this example.
Yeah, for sure. So let's move into the 111, 112. And again, for us, that would be, this is where you start to talk about a Caleb Johnson, Matthew Golden, who you kind of made reference to. You could talk me into, I wouldn't take RJ Harvey this high, but you could talk me into it. Jackson Dart, if you really needed a quarterback, could maybe go this high. Luther Burden, Jaden Higgins, those type of guys. That's where this 111, 112 tier starts, and it actually continues into the second round. The guys that I would be trading for in this range, George Kittle. You need a tight end. Let's say you missed out on Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren. They're not on the board. I would be okay sending away the 111, 112 for George Kittle. Just got an extension. James Cook in a contract dispute right now. But if you didn't want to take Caleb Johnson because you're like, Jalen Warren's there, he's going to factor into that backfield, whatever. Again, we're saying in a hypothetical universe in which you don't want to take Caleb Johnson. James Cook, I actually do have ranked over Caleb Johnson straight up in Dynasty, because if James Cook gets an extension, even if it's just a minor one, he's immediately going to be more valuable in Dynasty. And even let's say he's just going to play one more year for the Buffalo Bills and then hit the open market, I still think you're talking about a guy who in projections this year is going to be like a mid to late second round redraft pick. Like, he's going to be a really, really high valued asset. And then DK Metcalf, who you made reference to earlier, the Nico, the trade that we made was I traded him Nico Collins. And I got Breece Hall, DK Metcalf in the 312 in a league where I have like a loaded wide receiver core and have absolutely no running backs. That's why we made that trade. DK Metcalf's the fourth highest paid receiver in the league. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are probably going to use him like crazy, in my opinion, even though George Pickens is there and, we don't know who the quarterback is. I do think it'll ultimately end up being Aaron Rodgers come training camp or, whatever he ends up deciding to sign there. But if you get Aaron Rodgers as number one receiver in DK Metcalf, who downfield wise, Aaron Rodgers can still throw a good deep ball and that kind of thing, I think Metcalf is worth the 111, 112 for competitive teams. And if you have the 111, 112, there's a good chance you were a competitive team already.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that makes a ton of sense. My guys that I have listed here, similar theme, competitive assets, trying to get you over the top. Jared Goff, if you need a quarterback, like we said, I would much rather have Jared Goff than Jackson Dart at this point. Instead of taking Jackson Dart, trade for Jared Goff. I think a 111, 112 should be able to get that done, especially if that team doesn't have plans on competing this year. Christian McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs, both competitive running backs. Christian McCaffrey, a little bit more volatile of an asset, obviously given the injury, given the advanced age comparative to Josh Jacobs. But we've also seen the upside for McCaffrey legitimately be league winner, 22, 23 points per game, still tethered to the 49ers. At this opportunity cost, I'm willing to take the plunge on McCaffrey for a competitive team because, like I said, if he stays healthy and he plays a full 15, 16, 17 games, you're looking at a league winner at the end of a first-round type of price tag. Similar thing, I don't think Josh Jacobs has quite the upside to be, a McCaffrey-level league winner, but you're talking about 17.5, 18-plus points per game, tethered to a good Packers offense. Already made the case for why I think he could even be better with Jordan Love and Matthew Golden potentially spreading the ball down the field. Josh Jacobs, touchdown scorer, between the tackles runner, big-time bell cow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you're talking, just to bring this back around to what we talked at the beginning, if you're trying to trade your picks away for veterans, you're probably A, in a competitive window, B, you don't like whatever rookie is on the board for you, or C, you're looking for an opportunity to diversify some of the picks that you're spending. Because like you and I have both been in rebuilds where we'll have 7 picks in the first round in, the 2025 class, and you don't necessarily want to spend all 7 of those picks on players. In the rookie class, maybe you want to trade for some veterans, which is kind of why we're talking about some of these guys. One other honorable mention for 111, 112 is Brandon Ayuk as well. You could also send out for him. We talked about 2 of his teammates there. But I think if you're a 1-year punt type of team, Brandon Ayuk for the 111, 112 also makes some sense as well, because you might not get that production year 1 because he's coming off the ACL tear, and he would actually really help you in that situation. If let's say you had 6 or 7 ones and you're like, hey, I don't want to spend this 112 on Caleb Johnson, I'm just going to send that for Brandon Ayuk, who's going to help my team a year from now when he's back healthy from the injury. So for those of you guys that enjoyed this video, leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Our trade value charts, which we kind of basically went through in practice here, have every player top 80 or so running backs and wide receivers in me and Danny's dynasty rankings, top 40 or so quarterbacks and tight ends. And we have their trade values on the open market listed for Superflex, for 1 quarterback, future rookie picks. So what kind of 2026 capital would you trade away for them? What kind of 2027 capital would you trade away for them? And that is a really good resource for those of you guys that want to use it. It is available over on flockfantasy.com. Use the promo code FSE when you sign up, and you'll get 7 days for free, 30% off, and 6 months for free. When you sign up for an annual Mother Flocker subscription, you also do get a free team review, which is on our live stream yesterday. What we were doing, we were covering a lot of team reviews, breaking down dynasty rosters. So if that interests you, definitely check that out. We will have the inverse version of this video coming out next, which is trading veterans for first-round picks. So for those of you guys that don't have a lot of capital and you want to trade veterans away for pick capital in this rookie class, we will have you covered with that. This is essentially the version for contenders, and then the one for tomorrow will be teams that are kind of like tearing it down, looking to rebuild their rosters with rookies as well. So with that being said, peace out. We'll talk to you soon.